Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another animation analysis and reaction. Today we have another Honkai one, but it's not Impact Third. Ultimate Blade in my composer queue on Patreon decided to throw in Monodrama from Star Rail. To quickly address the elephant in the room, I know I promised to do the rest of the Honkai Impact Third animations, and I still do. I've just had a lot going on behind the scenes, so I haven't been able to properly get the time to do one of these. And not only is this video much shorter than a lot of those, but it's also a composer queue, so it kind of shoves it up right to the top of the list, and I get to it as soon as I feasibly can. But excuses aside, here we are, and I'm going to be giving Monodrama a look. So without further ado, let's go. Ooh, okay, right out the gate with an impact? Whew. All right.
子弹还有一发，我来自游戏吗？赌什么？假货的命。
God, there's so many layers to this.
看来有碍事的人在。
I've just been overwhelmed with visuals.
那又怎样？让我来告诉你什么是愚蠢。自作聪明，比如你。
I'm gonna have a lot to talk about on this one, aren't I?
知道什么时候该装傻，比如我。现在明白了吗？什么是欢愉？我就是欢愉。
My goodness. Okay, girl crazy. I mean, that was kind of obvious, but... God, there's so much in this. My eyes are like darting around the screen trying to catch all the details. Yo. Oh, and that kaleidoscope thing at the end. Dude, what the hell is this? I haven't had any sort of introduction to any of the characters in Star Rail, really, so it's like...
刚刚你不会吓到了吧？
What the hell? There's so much to unpack there. All right, this might be a longer video than I thought. All right, so the first and most obvious thing to talk about right off the bat is starting with an impact frame, basically right off the bat. And this is just so beautiful. The colors in this alone are phenomenal. And just for personal bias, I do really love teals. They're just one of my favorite colors in general. I love the way that they look, but I love especially the spice that they add to this impact shot just by throwing in some color in what would otherwise in most projects just be a plain black and white impact frame that still has the beautiful line work on here and the chromatic aberration that's happening around the outsides. You can see the color separation, the red, blue, and green there, just a little bit, very subtle, but that helps sell all the other colors on screen as well. And then it just transforms itself into this beautiful, like, flowery sort of transition that breaks apart and goes right into the next shot, completely seamless. And that is so smooth, so beautiful. The colors yet again making their showcase here a lot more up front and center now, and it just looks so fantastic. I can already tell I'm going to be talking about a lot of really tiny details in this one because there are so many. I think I mentioned it before, but I really don't understand the character here. I don't know what her story is. I haven't gotten into any of that, but I'm very curious about what this like multiple personality sort of thing is going on, these multi-lives that are happening that she's like trying to take care of. I have a feeling there's probably just some raw insanity to that, like she's seeing this in her head, kind of a la Pyro from TF2 and his trailer. I have a feeling it's kind of similar to that, where everything is much more bright, happy, no problem. But if the like mask were to fall, so to speak, not supposed to be a pun, but it kind of works, that kind of goes away and this is actually happening to different people, real people, and she's just not connecting those dots. So psychologically, that's pretty interesting. It's just fun to see how directors show this in different ways, but kind of getting the same point across. Like I already mentioned, the Pyro one in TF2, and also Jinx from League of Legends does that a lot, especially in Arcane. You kind of see this switch happening between reality and what she's seeing, and obscuring that line, blurring it a lot. I'm only talking about that now because I want to get it out of the way. Otherwise, I would be mentioning it every single time she goes through a moment like this, and that would just be the same statement over and over again. So that's my statement on that. I really like the direction that happens in this short in general. The effects animation has a lot of fun little things with it. This one's pretty simple, just having that star draw your eye up to the top corner so you can see where that blade is going to be coming from before it gets there. It just helps direct your vision up there as the viewer. Not really too much to talk about on there. I like that it has a trail, a very smooth one, very streamlined, very pointed. There's not a lot of wild like energy around it. Same thing with the leg, getting this like swoop here, actually having this leg sweep show that curve is very nice. It's something that's usually entirely optional, but especially in this visual aesthetic where it has a lot of those poppy colors and harsh line work, this works extremely well to just sell the movement a little bit more. It makes it feel more cartoony and fake, and it just carries through well. This is kind of interesting, and I'm not sure if it relates to the character's situation with the whole multi-personality thing and what's going on with that, but I like that when she shoots herself right here, her eyes glow, and that's just a nice detail. There's a lot of little details in this, and this is one that makes me feel like this is some sort of a connection to her power. Like maybe her doing that herself actually triggers something regarding her abilities. I'm not positive, like I said earlier, but I wouldn't be surprised. In the realm of fantasy, there are so many ways you can do things, and that would be kind of a neat one. Right here we get another example of those light trails. These ones are pretty obvious, just following up her eye path and keeping things bright and visually clear, especially with all of this movement that's just about to happen right here. Being able to see where her eyes rotated probably helped a lot of people understand where she ended up in this full turn, because this does get quite motion blurry in here, and it could have been completely lost. This sweep right here with the leg is another one that's helping finish the full circle. As the eyes went around, then the foot came back. Just having that directional sweep finish the circle really helps draw the eye back to the center and keeps you aware spatially what's going on in the frame. In this part, I'm specifically going by frame just to see what happens here, because I wasn't fully clear with it the first time through, and I feel like there might be something hidden in here, but I want to see. So we get this little slip away of her jumping off screen, this sort of like kick that happens here. I'm trying to figure out exactly what this was. It might have just been some sort of a reverse, because it looks exactly, yeah, so it's basically that exact movement just duplicated and sent back to kind of create some visual confusion, most likely. I can't really tell what's on these screens at all. I'm sure there's something underneath all those filters, but it's not exactly easy to see for anyone. These light flashes, you get the mask, that was pretty obvious. The fact that this just happens so quick in a matter of, let's count the frames from the start of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. That's roughly a single second of the actual animation if we're looking at a 24 frame standard here. So if we were to forgive the first 4 for being basically the start and then it repeats itself, if we ignore those first 4 frames. So that's a really quick transition and a lot of stuff to throw into that many frames, and most of those things only showing up for like maybe 2 or 3 frames is just so visually messy that it just helps in this context. A lot of the time, if you do that sort of thing and you don't have an exact clear concept on screen, it's not gonna do much. Like the mask was easy to read, but everything else was kind of confusing. But that kind of works here because she seems to be insane, and that works with that sort of character. When you don't really want their thing to make sense, make it as unhinged as you can, and it sells it that much better. So I put on the subtitles for this bit because I was kind of curious as to what she was saying to herself here, to see if there was any sort of clarity with who she is, just a little bit. but she says, I am elation. And that is a very specific word, elation. It's more similar to the feeling you get from adrenaline than general happiness. It is like an extreme, like, flush of joy. Elation is an extraordinarily specific word for this, and that does help kind of clear things up a little bit. It just kind of adds to the insanity plea here. She's definitely, in some way, shape, or form, fighting with herself, almost literally. This might all be happening like in her head, it might not. I'm really kind of jury's out on that one. But at the same time, when this shot happens and she goes through this whole kaleidoscope mess of visuals here, you just get to see everything. There's just a giant flow of information, very bright colors, very vivid, hard to fully understand. But I wanted to go through it frame by frame in general, just so we can really pick apart what's happening here. All of these colors, of course, you kind of get this spray out on this spot where it almost feels like wings, like almost akin to a butterfly of some sort. It could really be a myriad of intents here, but there's a lot of like these patterns here and out here that feel very like butterfly print on the wings. So that could be a specific concept visually for her. There's so much happening. This is why I wanted to slow it down, because while almost impossible to break down exactly what's happening here, this is probably just somebody's visual vomit, so to speak, where they were like, here, make this look cool but also insane. Here's your motivation. Insanity. Okay, do some drugs, let's figure out what it looks like. That's kind of what's going on here. I like the random inversions of color like they just did. This sort of white stripes esque music video thing here. I'm not sure if this was a specific reference, but if so, big if true. I really like that. There's also just a bunch happening here, like this being maybe the aftermath of what we just saw, and just kind of sitting, stewing in that mental space, just trying to make heads or tails of what just happened. I'm also trying to figure out exactly what's happening here with the morph to different people. This could be some sort of a subtext kind of thing, showing that maybe these were the people that were dying throughout the video up to this point, albeit it's hard to know, like I've said. It immediately goes into more. Even after that, it just continues to get more and more absurd at this point, and gets more and more confusing as to what's actually happening on screen, whatever this is. The faces aren't clear, they're getting distorted, you get that little like ripple in the face, so there's clearly a disconnect from humanity. The legs are obviously like puppets, like there's a bunch happening visually here. I don't know what this is. Maybe this is her three main selves? I mean, it can be any myriad of things. There's so many ways to interpret what's happening in this whole sequence here, especially with the mask that they're standing on too, that being the joy mask of the comedy masks that are popular in Shakespearean culture. There's so much to glean from just this one shot. Like maybe this one over here is the depression that comes with whatever she's repressing inside. This is her playful side that thinks it's fun, and this is her cunning intelligent side that's basically pulling all the strings, which could also tie back to the prior about the puppets. Here we get another shot of the puppets doing again that sort of like white stripes situation. We're getting a lot of Seven Nation Army vibes with these whole zoom in situations. Things getting more distorted as the camera continues to go through these. Just nonsensical paint scrawls in the back, nothing detail wise to showcase. All of these falling, I really don't know what this would mean, even a little bit. Maybe that is all of her different like personalities. It's so difficult to try and make sense of insanity. And honestly, here I'm kind of surprised with how smooth all the transitions have been so far, and how they've been playing into each other pretty much exclusively this whole project through. This one just kind of jumps to this entirely separate shot, which is just interesting. But then of course it is a pretty solid transition into this. By going into the skull, you're just kind of like, what's inside her head? Then this happens. And this shows basically just kind of a pop art surrealist version of what we just experienced before all this nonsense went down. I love the separation here. These color pops are very popular in like the 2010s era of like pop graphic art, and that itself was like a retelling of retro. So there's so much going on here. I just love this shot. This is art. This is so beautiful. Everything down from the colors and all of these sparkles happening, everything is so well balanced on screen. The placement even of her, all the void space up here, it's just beautiful. It's such a good composition just as a still frame, let alone the movement. And then right here we just have yet another beautiful transition into the eye. You get that kaleidoscope thing going on, and I love this visual aesthetic, just the fractals going on here showing that separation, but there's still some unity to it. That could be a sort of metaphor for what her brain's going through on a constant basis. There are so many ways to read into this. This one was honestly more of an analysis when it comes to the story and the character, I think, than it has been with the animation. All of the animation, of course, playing into what we're seeing here, but all in all, it is mostly just like trying to decipher her as a character for me, because you could argue trying to make sense of insanity in itself is insane, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. But I'm trying to do this to see if I can understand why certain visual decisions are made, as well as trying to maybe figure out what's up with the character's backstory just based off a trailer. You would hope that making a trailer for a character, that it would make that clear enough, or at least pique your interest enough to see what else is happening, and this more than did that in my opinion. But yeah, I think that's about all I've got to say for this one. That was definitely more of a trip than I thought it was going to be. Very impressive how they handled those visuals. As I've said many times, I love the way that directors handle insanity in so many different ways, and that's one of my favorite personal tropey ones, is the whole separation of reality, and just how you show that can be so open. It's such a playground to mess with. So there's just a lot to love about this animation, and while I don't know anything about the character, and I probably won't be getting to the other Star Rail stuff for quite a while, at least until I finish all of the Honkai stuff, I need to get Impact Third stuff finished before I decide to move on to the Star Rail stuff too much. Otherwise I'll get stuck in that and never finish the Impact Third stuff. So there's just so much to get to on top of everything else, but I have opened up my schedule a little bit very recently, so things should be happening in the next month or two, so fingers crossed I'm able to get to more Honkai stuff, because honestly I've been missing it. I miss doing animation reaction and breakdown stuff. It's one of my personal favorite things to do. It's just unfortunate that it does take so long to actually produce these videos as a whole, especially when they're about 15-minute long videos. So it's just a lot, but I do plan to get all of those done, and I hope you all want to stick around for all of that, because if you like this video and you want to follow me for more, you know how to do all that, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!